Small talking.
Listen, we're already here. All right, stop fucking around. This is the real deal.
We're here potting on
I wanted to tell you something. I wanted to start with a little something. I got a little skip.
Go right ahead.
All right. Now, we all know that there's a lot of lyricism in the history of hip-hop, right, through the decades. We've had a lot of MCs that have really poured their souls out into their music, right?
Sure.
But I want to get into the country redneck lyricism that's so underrated, and people really don't understand what I'm talking about. So let me just get into it, right? So redneck lyricism, right?
Okay.
Now this is, I'm about to give you some lyrics right now from a song by a gentleman by the name of Walker Wheeler Jr.
Okay.
Now already that's based.
Walker Wheeler Jr. Okay.
Right, because that means his dad had that name and said, this is good.
Yeah,
Right.
Actually, that's the worst, by the way. Like,
anyways.
Yeah, I would never name my son the same
After
thing
me?
as me.
No.
That's so lame, bro.
Fuck that shit.
Come on.
But the name of the album is called Redneck Shit, and the song is called Better Off Beaten Off.
Better Off
Beaten Off.
Nice title.
It says here, sick and tired of this same old lie, rather be unzipping my fly, pull my cock out and I start to cry, jacking off with tears in my eye.
Profound.
You feel that way? You felt that, right?
Yeah.
You felt that? Okay, so
He's sweating. He's cooking.
let me give you a little
Let
something.
him cook.
So he has another track from this album called Sex, Drugs, and Country Music. This song is called Fucked by a Country Boy.
Hey.
and
Is our friend here a part of the LG?
No.
Okay.
He says, hey, bitch from New York City with them fake California titties. I know you're waxed and vaxxed, but have you ever been smashed to some old Conway Twitty? I know you got your man with the spray on tan, but you need to get your ass down south. Trade that dick up in the penthouse for some cock down in the hen house. He goes on to say, have you ever been fucked by a country boy? Rammed by a redneck. Spread by an inbred.
Wow. I gotta hear this.
It's all right. This is the last one I'm going through.
Okay.
All right.
Who is this again? Walker Wheeler Jr.?
Yes. Yeah. It ends with that part. Just ends with if you've never been licked by a hick with a hillbilly dick, or got a rash on your stash from some trailer trash, then girl, you need to get fucked by a country boy. Right. Now this last one is from Rebel Son.
Okay.
Album is called Railroad, and the song is called Running a Train.
Oh, God.
Right. Now, honey, how about you hang out with us after the show is through? Because you said you wanted a good time, and all my buddies too. And there's a whole lot of damn horny dicks in here, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to strip you down and not one stitch and run up a train on you. Well, honey, now you're sure having a good time. We're glad because we are too. And honey, you're hanging in there fine, just like we knew you'd do. When we're done doing you from behind, we're going to split you right in two. We're going to tear up every damn hole you got, run us a train on you. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know.
Well, you spitting it versus hearing it is completely different, but I would say my man is living that wild redneck down south Texas life.
That redneck shit, yeah. There's no doubt.
I gotta give him his respect on that.
There's no faking that. Yeah.
Is this guy some guy you just found on like a rant, or is he famous? Like,
he's famous.
He's famous. In country music, I guess. Like, oh shit.
Not necessarily.
Okay, I think we might have to.
I wouldn't say country music per se.
Guys, we are getting wet right now by the rain.
I wouldn't say country music per se.
Okay.
More something along the lines of like.
Oh.
I feel you.
Technical difficulties, but. Man, fuck Walter. What was his name? I forgot.
Walker Wheeler
Walker.
Jr.
It's such a fucking tongue twister. Walker Wheeler Jr. Jesus.
Anyways, let's move on from that. He said if you ever been spread by an inbred, you know, that's some wild shit to say.
How old is this man?
Oh, this dude must be like in his 40s and shit, you know.
Like when he made these songs, was this recent or?
I don't know how recent it was, bro. But this dude is a comic. He's a comic.
Clearly.
Yeah, all his shit is fucking around. Like
Ali G type shit.
it's not really trolling. Like it's sort of like
he's kind of serious, but it's just
he's just bass fucking around, like making music that's fun. You know?
Yeah.
Anyways, who gives a fuck?
Respect that, man.
Here's the real deal, right? I know
Andrew Tate is out.
Well, Andrew Tate is out, yeah, and now, and despite that, Trump is now indicted as well.
Ooh, let's touch on Andrew Tate right quick.
Let's go for it. Yeah, you saw the video that was posted, right? He's doing circles in his house.
My man is wolfing.
He's unshaved, 100%, bald spot visible.
Legendary quotes every day on Twitter ran from his management team.
Yeah.
With some like, the night fucking is dark, but every other day will become a brighter, you know, he'll come up with some typical...
He's going for the self-help shit.
Yeah, extreme, profound self-help, guru. But yeah, Andrew Tate and his brother is out finally. I believe they're on house arrest.
Yeah.
And... I don't know what I got to say
They're
about
smoking. Listen, the video I saw, this guy's out there smoking a cigar, like as he always does. But he's running. He's going in circles around his own house. He's shirtless.
Seems stressed.
Unshaved. Definitely seems stressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he's trying to unwind from that shit.
He was probably fiending for that cigar. Like
that's probably true.
Let's keep it a buck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how tough Romanian prison is or whatever, but
I would imagine it's pretty tough because Romania itself is not, you know, there's
some fuck shit going on.
Some bad motherfuckers out there, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, well, forget Andrew Tate. The real deal though, my man Trump is actually...
He's indicted. He's been indicted.
Mugshot's coming soon.
And it's hilarious because the indictment is actually, this is coming from Manhattan.
The federal court?
It's not federal, it's state.
Oh, it's the state?
And it's not even state. It's like the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Yeah.
So it's some base shit, right?
They're basic. Yeah. It's completely based. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna pretend to know everything about this shit, but like basically they're just gonna accuse Trump of like paying all this hush money.
Do they have like full blown evidence though?
I have no idea because they haven't released it. Like the indictment is not visible to the general public, right?
Since he is the former president and shit.
I don't know what the issue is, but it's basically the hush money and covering up shit that has to do with like Stormy Daniels. But apparently, allegedly, there's other shit. Apparently, there's like 30 charges that have to do with like
what the fuck?
Business fraud. Now, this is according to CNN. And that shit is still unreleased, and it's sealed to the public. So that's about as much as we can get out of that shit. Listen.
So wait, so now Trump just has to turn himself in, right? Technically,
no,
right?
I don't think he's not. He's been indicted, so that means he would have to go to court allegedly. But I don't know what they're gonna do if he doesn't show up.
Dude, that's insane. Like, technically, if he does get, like, if whatever happens, and let's say it's all true, can he run again? Still run again?
He can definitely run again.
That wouldn't affect him in any...
I don't see how...
Like, legally, I mean, like, no, right?
Legally, yeah. I don't see how they can prevent him from running. Like, this is the issue in this country, that there's, like, such separation of powers.
Yeah.
That, like, when the state laws and the federal laws collide... It can become a big issue. And, of course, we had a civil war because of the way we got 50 states. They're states. They're not like,
Each state has their own...
Yeah, they got
rules,
their own constitutions
laws.
and all that shit, yeah. So that's something to consider.
That is weird,
It's
dude.
not something to fuck around with. We have a very weird structure here that developed over time, and for good reason.
Do you think the Constitution should ever be changed?
I think it's been changed plenty of times, and for good reasons for the most part.
Do you think it still should be changed though? Anything that's like
Right now?
Yeah,
it's hard to say, because like
a lot of people would say fucking guns and shit. There was a shooting Should people be able to hold automatic rifles? Should we just be able to just buy them like nothing?
I wouldn't say like nothing, but I'm not thinking that it's a good idea to take them away anytime soon. And part of the reasoning just has to do with the fact that there's always been a large amount of gun owners in the United States.
Right.
And yet this mass shooter phenomenon, you know, it's much...
Dude, it's like the 127th.
Yeah. It's much...
Listen, I'm not against guns, but that's in fucking sane. Like, that's wild, bro.
And my issue is always like, what is the cause of that?
But how could we really find the cause of that, though?
Well, one way is like you analyze, like for example, how long people have been having just, you know, this obsession with guns in the United States, and it's basically always been around.
But not even that. Like, there's so many variables, though. The mental state of the person that did the shooting.
Yeah.
The whole obsession with guns in America.
But guns are a constant in America. Like it's
always been
that variable's always been persistent.
Motherfuckers having duels back then.
Yeah, there was a lot of shit. That, you know, people have always had guns here in the United States.
It's kind of inbred in us. It's just like our...
Yeah, it's part of the DNA of the country.
It's our culture. It's our, like...
And then the mass shooting phenomenon is much more recent than that.
Yeah, for sure.
So then the gun shit predates the mass shooting obsession that we have now.
You know who's been on a fucking, like a promo run? Like, I don't know, maybe the government's paying this dude, but like he's been going on places. I believe his name is Rod Stewart.
No, who's that?
Is it Rod Stewart? Something Stewart. It's this guy that's been going on like these shows and shit and like been like super against guns. And like,
is it a comedian?
He might be an actor.
Are you talking about Jon Stewart?
Jon Stewart.
From Comedy Central, he has
like a TV, like a late night show?
Yeah, it's a political comedy show he does.
Oh, it's a political... I have no idea who he is. I just been seeing him all over, like, on fucking shows, and he's been, like, super advocating against guns and, like, about kids and shit. Do you know much about him?
I mean, yeah, I've seen his show in the past.
He's cool, he's funny. I have no info.
I can't stand that shit. I can't.
He's trash?
No, man. It's it's like the Daily Show type shit. I can't do it, bro. It's just hard to stomach that type of shit. It's basically propaganda disguised as comedy, and it becomes just it's a parody of itself at this point.
In a weird way, yeah.
Listen,
but to get back to Trump though, like let's finish it up. Damn. Trump getting indicted, dude.
There's no way to know where this is headed.
Dude, what my point was, I was going to say, dude, 2024 might be the craziest election
it's going to be wild.
Of all time.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe so.
I mean, I was on Twitter right now, and people are saying all types of wild shit. I saw a dude who was saying that Jeffrey Epstein paid for the education of Ron DeSantis. That he paid for him to go to Harvard. And he claims that that's why he had such an easy time in prison here in Florida.
Wow. What a take. That's a wild...
And I'm thinking like, all right, fam.
Seems like a reach, but...
This is you got to give me something here, fam. You can't
got his tinfoil hat on.
You can't just spill that shit out, you know?
I don't know. Fucking...
I'm just pointing that out there. The Constitution, though, itself...
Yeah.
Like the Constitution of the United States...
It's solid. You think it's solid?
It's built... the problem with it's designed to be solid as long as the people are solid. If the people in the country are not solid, the Constitution crumbles, because then it's just a sheet of fucking paper.
You don't think that these dudes were living in a completely different time? Maybe
Absolutely.
Possibly could have aged bad. There's or at least certain things that could have been aged not so well, and like
I think they were
maybe modified a little bit.
I think what they did was they modified what had happened in the past. Like you know how history was. History started with just, a shitload of people who were taking over territory and property and slaves and all that shit. And then you had in Greece democracy, but it was a ridiculous form of democracy where if you were a property owner, you could stand up there with all the other property owners and you guys could shout at each other about what you're going to do. And then in Rome, they made a Senate and they still had an emperor, which ultimately ended.
Right.
They had all these wars with the Germanic tribes. And now we have the Constitution of the United States, which tries to make things better than that so that it won't fucking crumble. But they were not that optimistic, the people that...
The Founding Fathers?
Yeah, they were not. They were like, this is the best we can do, but it's a republic if you can keep it. If you can't, then figure out another way, because this is the best we can do for now.
No, I just asked because that's I always hear that in different podcasts. Like, a lot of people do say that we do need to change. The gun laws is the biggest shit now because of the whole... I mean, there is a lot of money behind guns, though, too.
There is a lot of money, and there is
a lot of evil intentions.
And the technology is a lot more... It has changed drastically. That's true, but...
Not even that. Fucking, you could 3D print a gun.
Oh, yeah, you could do that.
Dude, 3D printing, like, for a while, I didn't even understand the concept of it. I was like, wait, you're building things now? Like,
yeah.
I was so, like, mind blown. I'm like, and it takes, like, mad days if it's, like, depending how big it is and shit. I'm like, that's insane, bro. Like, 3D printing is fucking wild. Like, I'm actually interested. I might want to go one. Like,
what are you trying to say? You trying
build
to...
a little strap, you know? Who knows? Nah, I'm just kidding, but I wouldn't. But just the idea of you could, like, just, like, who knows what you could build with that shit, bro?
Oh, you could build a lot. I mean, people are trying to, they're building organs and shit, you know?
People are 3D printing food.
Yeah, that's wild.
And eating steak out of 3D printed
Okay, I don't
printers.
know how the fuck they're doing that shit, but...
They're doing all type of weird shit.
Jesus.
That's World Economic Forum vibes.
Yeah, that's the type of shit they always talk about. But, you know, since we're on the topic of guns, there was the other day a huge conflict that happened after this trans mass shooter ended up mass shooting.
Oh, what's up?
Right?
It was a trans shooter?
It was a trans mass shooter, right?
Okay.
So this is a person that ended up killing 3 students and then 3 other people. So a total of 6 people at this Christian elementary school. And she actually attended that school.
Oh, shit.
The shooter's name is Audrey Hale.
Okay.
And it's a woman who wanted other people to consider her a man, hence trans, right? She ended up getting shot dead by 2 police officers.
Wait, you're saying that's legitimately why she did the shooting?
No.
Oh. But you're saying, well, why'd you...
I'm leading to it.
Oh, okay,
it's getting there.
Go.
But she was obsessed with, like, the friends that she had when she played basketball in middle school.
Okay.
Because, like, when she was in middle school, apparently this was, like, the best time of her life. She was in the basketball team, and she was very shy and shit, and
Sure.
all the girls on the team tried to, like, you know, be friendly to her and shit. Or apparently she appreciated that or whatever. And she still kept up with them. And they were saying it was sort of like stalkerish shit. And she ended up sending these messages to them before the mass shooting, where she started talking about, like, I'm gonna die tomorrow. You're gonna see me in the news in a few hours. That type of shit,
Oh, man.
right? And of course,
Toxic shit.
and now this has, of course, created a debate between, like, the people who are obsessed with discussing politics 24/7. For their side only, right? Between the Democrats with their own hypocrisy and the Republicans with their own hypocrisy.
Right.
And each one is accusing the other side of hypocrisy because each side can only see the hypocrisy of the other side.
There, yeah, exactly.
And so you see this ridiculous little debate going on about... Because it's true that everybody has a debate about what the demographics are of the mass shooter. Every time a mass shooting happens, was this person white? Was it black? Was it a man? Was it a woman? Well, now it was a trans chick who wanted to be a dude, right?
Right.
So now with this situation, you got to ask yourself, what the fuck is going on?
Is this one of the first of, like... Is this the first trans...
The first trans shooter? I don't know.
Probably not, right?
No idea, but people are arguing about it, and they're saying that it has to do with the being trans and shit, or you know, that's the Republican side. The Democrat side, a lot of them just point out, like, look at all these white mass shooters or whatever. You know, it's
not even that. They'll try to make her a victim in some sort of way.
That's happening as well. Yeah,
because she is trans, which is, like, mind blowing.
I don't know if it was CBS or CNBC that ended up not mentioning that the shooter was a trans woman.
Of course.
Or a trans man or whatever the fuck.
Right.
And this is somehow... I think even Jordan Peterson, he tweeted about it, you know, just saying like, oh, this is fucking ridiculous. Like,
I seen an article saying like how like the shooter had gotten molested or some shit, and it's like
I considered that because to shoot up the elementary school.
That's why, because you got molested though. That's not like a justified.
I don't think it's
not even morally.
I don't think it's because she got molested. I just think it's a variable.
That's what I'm saying. Like the article was just bringing it up though. Like, but they kind of like made it like the title, like, oh, school shooter had gotten molested, and like I don't know, just like kind of makes it like victimizing it a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind
of weird.
It's softer.
Yeah,
she
should be shunned immediately. Like,
yeah,
fuck that. Like, she just killed fucking kids. Like,
I'm with you.
But that shit is the school shooting shit is actually out of control, bro. Like, that's actually really sad.
It was in elementary school too, man.
Not to be on some like sad gay shit, but like, damn, like that's OD, bro. 127 in a year.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
The numbers are piling up. There's a lot of shit going on. But we do know that the mass shooting effect is also, you know, spreading. And I don't think it's the result of just fucking people having access to guns. They've always had that access to guns. I think,
are we the top in the U.S.? I mean, the top in like the top country that has the most school shootings? I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, I would say
it's because of our freedoms, though. Because we have so much freedom. You think about it, like.
I mean, it's also like the mindset that people have too. There's
of course. That's
and the obsession we have with media. We're constantly looking in our little bubbles, you know. And if you're a mass shooter, if you're somebody that's thinking about that type of shit, because there's websites people go to.
Best Gore, all type of like extremely violent videos that are just out there.
But also forums.
Or people just like...
where they back each other up into these corners, you know, and they worship like the mass shooters who have done that shit in the past, you know?
Right. Or just like weird, like alt-right guys in this forum. Like,
those guys are fucking... those guys need something. We talked the last time. I mean, I'm telling you, like, those are guys... Right, I don't care if you're a black Hebrew Israelite or if you're if you're one of the fucking white supremacy dudes. Like, I always think that like you got cucked by a dude of another race.
Yeah.
And now you're out here and you can't get over the cuck that you are, and so now you take it out on everybody who has a different level of melanin than you, and so that fucks with you, right? Because I think some dude was pounding away.
On your queen.
At your precious little queen, just dripping disgusting sweat all over the fucking place. And it was getting real rowdy, and he was fucking twisting her up, looking like a pretzel and shit.
Folded short.
Doing things to her, and she was making sounds that you didn't even know were possible out of her, and he's dripping all this fucking sweat, and she's licking it off his dick, and it's all, and he's fucking nutting deep inside. She lets him do anal. She's never even let you touch that shit, you know?
Damn, lucky man.
And he's dripping all over that. He has the sauce.
For sure.
And you have no sauce, and you run into that, and now you just can't get over it, and so what do? You start hating on everybody that looks like the guy that fucked your bitch, bro. That's what you think.
You think the dudes joining the black Hebrew Israelites was free will or determinism?
Oh, man.
Segue right there, dog.
Listen. This is a rough thing to debate. If you talk to a guy like Sam Harris, he'll tell you that there is no free will.
I know. He says it's an illusion.
Right, but he also says that in part because he thinks the idea of the self is an illusion. But that one's a bit of a...
Or have you heard of the locked room theory?
The locked room theory.
Or like the example he uses, better yet, where like if you're in a locked room but you didn't know it's locked, or like some shit like that. You ever heard of it?
No, that sounds like Plato's the cave metaphor.
Or it could probably be similar to that. But yeah, he says some like locked door example, which is like a good way of explaining it. But I don't know, dude. I feel like that's such a hard thing that like determinism is like everything is like pretty much determined already. All your choices based on like your genetics, where you grew up, this, that, everything that's affected you some way.
Yeah.
Pretty much is the reason why you do the things you do.
Well, I think that there's even in history, there's been a form of compatibilism.
That's like the two in the middle, kind of?
Where there is considered this idea of a certain amount of free will.
David Hume talks about that.
Even though things are predetermined in many ways, right? So I think the Stoics were probably like that because they, there's the idea of like fate or destiny or whatever. Like things are going to unfold in a specific way, and they're only going to unfold in that way.
Right.
And whatever possibilities you thought could have happened and can happen in the future, it doesn't matter. It's only going to happen one way.
Right.
Right.
The line is complete.
Yeah. So the idea would be, for example, I think the Stoics were probably like this. They were probably compatibilist in some way, where they believed in this idea of fate, right? Like you're something is going to happen.
Regardless.
Right. And so, but you're still a part of all of that that's going to happen. And your decision is going to have an effect on that. And it's a weird sort of way of thinking because in many ways it seems like it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, I was going to say,
right? Because how can this be predetermined
if it's already going to happen?
And one way that I try to think about it involves like, imagine that everything that we're going through right now, like it already happened. Right?
Okay.
Imagine that time was like a piece of bread and whatever slice you cut it in, that's the part that you're at right now. That's the present, right? Like the slice of bread starts off at one part and goes all the way to the end of the slice of bread. You cut it off at a certain section, that's the present, right?
Okay.
And it's going forward into another slice of time, right? Now, all of that bread is already there, meaning all of that time has already existed. And we're sort of stuck in a situation where we're hallucinating this time in a certain way. Now, that's some very hippy, dippy, trippy shit.
I see that.
Right. But determinism versus free will doesn't have to be so complex if you think about it, because it's like free will. First of all, the free will is a hard one to decipher because it's like what exactly makes it free will? Because you got to define the you that's free to have a will.
Sure.
Right, and that's a tricky thing to do because...
Like if I ask you to drink, if I ask you like, hey, do you want to drink the soda?
Yeah.
And or like, hey, if I have an apple and an orange, and I ask you which one do you like, or which one do you want? And you picking the apple, is you picking the apple free will?
Yeah.
Or is it determinism just based on...
Because free will assumes that like you could have picked the other one.
Yeah. But was it just determinism and just because maybe you did like apples already or XYZ, whatever instance?
Well,
it's actually a hard, I don't think it's impossible to debate that. Like, it's so like, there's so many things you could like input or like.
If you're thinking scientifically, I don't think that there's a spot for free will that has been discovered because it's just like there's biology and environment. And the combination of the two lead to whatever choice you're going to make.
Right.
And there's no variable called free will that you can measure in a lab or outside of it.
Right. There's no. Right.
And so that would be the basic statement. Now, I think the more important thing is like.
So wait, what do you believe in? Just for example.
I for the most part think that.
I think there's both.
I think that. I wish I knew enough to answer that question.
If you had to just take a random lucky shot at it.
If I had to take just a shot, I would have to go with just the scientific perspective where we don't have free will.
Interesting.
Where we don't, because there's no space for it.
Interesting.
In terms of any evidence that we can... Now, that doesn't mean that there is no free will. I mean, there's too many things that haven't been answered, like what the fuck is consciousness, right?
Sure.
Now, you can't scientifically measure consciousness.
Definitely can't.
At least, and what I mean by you can, it's like we haven't been able to. That doesn't mean we won't be able to in the future, but we haven't been able to do it. And so it's difficult to have a scientific perspective on that shit when it hasn't been, like, measured, And so that's a rough one. Now,
how about just the whole idea that science is just some like bullshit or whatever?
That's one way to phrase shit.
Yeah, just some bullshit.
Some bullshit.
Like, science should never be viewed as the truth, but probabilities that are helpful.
I mean, that is some hippie shit to say.
Like, I could keep going. Let's go. Like, you can never prove a scientific fact past the level of hypothesis.
Yeah, I find that one interesting because, like, a hypothesis is just a prediction.
Sure.
About the way that the natural world works.
Right.
So, a hypothesis, the reason they say, because it's tricky, because the word fact is in that sentence.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I mean, like
Right.
what people say, like, let's say gravity, for instance.
Yeah, gravity.
Like, we don't, like, or how Isaac Newton believed in how gravity was working, where he was completely wrong. He was just, like, technically, it was just some, like, voodoo shit. Like, he didn't really know.
Right.
Exactly. Like, or, like, what's another example?
Like, if I'm saying that if I let go of a soda, it'll fall.
It'll fall. Like, you're just saying that based off the history you've had with the soda, or you dropping the soda.
Well, if the claim...
And scientific facts are just regularities and patterns.
Well, scientists don't really use the word fact like that. They don't, because there's hypothesis.
But there was the law of gravity.
Yeah, the law. There is a law of gravity.
Well, Einstein, didn't he, like, figure it out or, like, prove it wrong that Isaac Newton was wrong or some shit?
Well, Isaac Newton was wrong about some things.
Yeah. No, it wasn't it was like backwards or some shit.
But there is a law of gravity, yeah. There is.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Now, the idea of, like,
you
fact...
wouldn't say it's just you wouldn't consider it just a new narrative?
No, because, I mean, if anything that's based on evidence, I don't consider a narrative. I consider a story a narrative, but not something that's based on evidence if it tightly fits the evidence. That's why a theory is a theory, right?
So just because you've had history and it's done it all these times, you believe that...
Oh, that's the Hume idea.
You pretty much have faith that the future will act like the past just because the history you've had with the item or XYZ, whatever.
I think that because see, the variable of time sort of confuses it a bit, because if it's like the universe is built in a certain way, well, unless there's any evidence that...
Logically, it's no...
Unless there's any evidence that it'll be deconstructed in a certain way, then there's no evidence that it'll work differently tomorrow.
I mean, but technically you have no, like...
Because in science you use, for example, the null hypothesis and then the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is like, we're talking about gravity, right?
But technically, in philosophy, that wouldn't be hard objectivity.
There is, I mean, philosophy is as far from objectivity as you can get compared to science.
What is it called? It's like, is it called deductive reasoning or...
Deductive reasoning?
And inducting reasoning or
yeah.
some shit like that? Let me see. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Deductive and inductive.
Inductive, there you go. And like inductive is like fucking...
But see, the problem with inductive reasoning is just based on like just pure... You can use like pure logic to induce a certain conclusion. But the thing is that in science, you're measuring something in the natural environment.
Right.
And so you're observing it. So you're capturing actual evidence. You're not relying on just your own bullshit conception and your infallible logic, right? You're relying on what you're able to observe and measure, and what you're able to observe and measure across various different experiments. It can't just be one fucking guy did it. You know, you have to be able to measure it and reproduce it.
What about randomness?
What about it?
It's complete bullshit. It's a mental construct.
That randomness doesn't exist?
It doesn't.
That's a good question. That's beyond my scope.
How about randomness is just your projection of ignorance, in the sense where, like...
It could be.
It's the fact that we're not able to compute all the...
We're not.
Variables of, like, if I roll a dice...
Yeah.
When people say, like, oh, shit, I randomly rolled a 7.
Yeah.
Like, technically you didn't. You just rolled it. However you rolled it that way...
Yeah.
Is the evidence.
That was going to lead to that.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
So... But it's a thing that, like, it's a mental construct that people have always been saying, like, oh, it's random. Oh, it's random. Like, there's no such thing as randomness. That's why, like, what's that dude's name? I think I wrote it down. The guy who made the binary code?
Yeah.
What's his name? Leibniz?
No idea.
He talks, he says a story about, like, how, like, the universe works, or, like, how the universe is always, like, a part of you in a way. It's a little difficult, but like he compares it to like playing pool, like breaking like when you break in pool.
Yeah.
Like Lebanon says that he could technically tell you where every ball is gonna go.
Yeah.
If he has the math for every single thing. And pretty much that's how life works in a way.
They would say that. Now this is a very incomplete thing if you're not just working based on your own logic. Like if you're observing the universe,
Okay.
like they see logic everywhere in quantum physics.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean logic. I mean, what would you call it? You could call it randomness. Just unpredictability.
Okay.
Things not acting in a way that that can be predicted using any models. That doesn't mean that there won't come a model that can predict it. It's just that the universe acts in a way that we haven't been able to predict at the quantum level. And
go ahead.
And that there's two incompatible theories. There's the theory of the very big, right? And the theory of the very small, the quantum physics, right?
I don't know about this.
And these two do not unify into one universal theory of how the universe works, because one theory contradicts the other. And so you have to be able to say that certain laws apply here that won't apply there.
Sure.
And we haven't been able to unify these two sets of laws and these two theories into one unified theory about how the universe works. It's almost like there's two different universes, and if you look at big shit, you get one, and if you look at small shit, you get another one, and the small shit is a lot harder to understand.
That's interesting, dude. Philosophy is trippy.
Now that one is just based on just pure, just science and mathematical models that rely on the evidence to...
Quantum physics seems like fucking rocket science.
Well...
I would fucking lose hair trying to like...
It's not for the faint of heart, man.
What about every objective thing that we see has a subjective element to it?
Well, can you give me an example of that?
Berkeley once said... Can you picture a red triangle right now?
Yeah.
Can you picture a green one?
Yeah.
Can you picture a white one?
Yeah.
Now try to picture one with no color, with no subjective element to it.
With no color?
With, like, color would be the good example, but like no subjective element to it, without any.
Without any subjective element.
Yeah.
No, what we mean by without any subjective...
That's why I said color, because color is subjective. Technically, you would have to... That's the way you're seeing the triangle, right?
Yeah.
You need a color to it. Like in fucking math is not subjective, sure, right? It's not a subjective, right? It's subjective, whatever. Even when you like draw a number in a chalkboard, like in order to see the number, you need a subjective contrast to it. In a way. You need like a color. You need to see like... If not, you're not able to like...
Well, I understand that.
You know what I mean? Like...
I understand that. Now, something that you can actually measure objectively, though... would be pretty much whatever you measure scientifically. Because whatever you measure scientifically has to be specific enough so that it can be reproduced and the variables can be controlled to the same degree. And if it was subjective... meaning that it was open to interpretation, then you couldn't reproduce it in any exact way.
If I see your shirt right now and I see that it's gray.
Yeah.
But to a blind person or some guy who's colorblind.
Yeah.
It's just whatever color their senses are showing.
But that's
them.
an issue of human perception.
But it's still technically...
That's an issue of human perception because color is just, electromagnetic radiation or some shit, right? So you can measure it, but the idea, what we perceive as color, that's the illusion, you could say. That's just our perception, but you can still measure what it is. I mean, there's a rainbow right there, right? That's just the visible spectrum of light that we're able to see.
Sure.
Now...
Maybe not everybody sees that, though.
No, not everybody sees it. In fact, there's parts of it that we don't see that other animals see.
Others will probably.
Right. Now, how do we know that? Well, that's because we've been able to measure it, right, in a way that we're able to test First of all, because we're able to use other devices that can measure this in a way that's objective and not really open to subjectivity, right? Because if you can use an instrument to measure something, it doesn't matter whether or not you agree and I agree about whether the dress is this color or that color.
Right.
There's an objective view of it when there's light presented that can be measured. It's not something that you see, it's something that you can measure. And so that you can answer the question clearly. Another problem is that there's some questions that are just not scientific questions. Like, what is the meaning of life is not a scientific question. You know, a scientific question is a question that you can answer by conducting some sort of experiment or doing something that's empirical.
But technically basing our knowledge just off experiences, though.
Not really not really on our experiences, no.
How not?
If I use an instrument, for example, to find something, right, it's not based on my experience. Like, I can't look at some shit.
David Hume would say that any knowledge gained from inductive reasoning can't be true knowledge.
I mean, but there's nothing really inductive about it because I didn't induce anything. I just, the environment was there.
Okay.
I used an instrument to measure something.
Sure.
And that data is there whether or not I decide to pay attention to it.
They would say that you're just attributing physical laws to nature. Those physical laws are not in nature. Like these things that
they would have to prove that.
These things that we're just naming, like we're just giving a name to, like there's none of that in nature.
Well, they would have to find evidence to the contrary, because I mean, if there's already evidence that they do exist. Right, because of their consistency, then the idea, because Hume's idea would then be to say something like it happened a million times in a row, but it might just be a coincidence, right? Or it might just be unrelated events that occur in sequence every time that you have done them in the past. That doesn't mean it'll happen again. Right. I threw the ball on the floor and it fell to the floor. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that if I do it again, it'll happen again, right?
I mean, it's a tough one because it's like he's not wrong in a way.
Well, look, in science they have the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. Okay. So if we're talking about the ball falling to the floor every time that I throw it, right?
That would be...
Okay, let's say that I predict that the ball is going to fall to the floor every time I throw it.
Sure.
Right? Now that's the alternative hypothesis. Okay. That's my hypothesis.
Sure.
The null hypothesis is the one that says there's no effect, which means I throw the ball
and random shit happens.
It's not going to fall to the floor.
Right, it just goes up.
Right. Okay, that's the one that you automatically accept if you don't have enough evidence from a study. You automatically, or at least you fail to accept the alternative hypothesis, right? Like, you don't accept, okay, it's going to fall to the floor every time I throw it. Now, if you would do that if you didn't have evidence for it.
Right.
But if I do an experiment and the ball fell to the floor, I dropped it 40 times and it fell to the floor 20 times. I would have to say, if you drop the ball, it falls. That would be my conclusion. Now, the results and the conclusion are two different things.
Okay, that's true, for sure.
The results are just an observation of what happened, what the data is.
The history of what you did, the experiments with
it's just the data.
Sure, whatever you want to call that, sure.
And then the conclusion is what you think this means, what you say this means, not your fucking speculation.
Right.
Just you putting this into the theory, right? What does this say about our knowledge of science?
Let me ask you...
it's not an opinion piece. It's not you speculating. It would be like, well, this supports the evidence that when you throw balls, they fall to the ground.
Right, all the experiments you've done with it.
Now, that doesn't mean that it's true. Science never says something is true or false. It just supports or rejects evidence. Gotcha. It just says, we have enough evidence for this, we don't have enough evidence for that.
Okay. There's another the video I was watching. This dude, he has like what's it called? It's like the coin shit. Okay, so a coin that has heads or tails, sure, right?
Yeah.
Now,
maybe it lands on the side. You know what I mean?
fucking. How do you know this? That it's gonna land on heads or tails, based off your history with the coin, or
As opposed to like what other option?
wait, let me get to it before I forget. Based on your history with the coin, or do you know that logically?
Well, see, that's a good question, right? What am I using to conclude this? Am I using logic or just my history?
Just a simple question. Do you know the coin is gonna flip on heads or tails based off your history with the coin, or do you know that logically?
Right. Well, let's try to let's see if we
You can pick both. It doesn't matter.
Let's see if we can look at it the opposite way and see if that helps us understand your question. So let's say that I flip a coin,
right,
and it lands on the side just as often as it lands on heads or tails.
Okay.
Right. Now, for that guy, if there's a guy that's been doing that his whole life, and
it's been landing on the side,
and he's only seen that his whole life, that it lands on the side just as much as it lands on heads or tails.
Okay.
Now, when you ask him what's the likelihood that it's going to land on the side, he'll say it's 33.33%.
Sure.
Right. So for that guy, if he concludes that, was that based on logic, or was that based on just his historic observations?
I would say it's history.
You'd say it's his history.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was logically.
You wouldn't say it was logic.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just using this example this guy was using. Because technically, if let's say you didn't.
Because I think it is based on history for most people.
Let's say you didn't know about the coin at all.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know a coin had heads or tails or whatever. So whatever, I flip the coin. I start flipping it, and a butterfly just pops up when I flip it.
Yeah.
And I start flipping it 100 more times.
And that happens.
You'd expect that it'd be a butterfly, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's just based off your history. It's just you didn't know anything about the coin at all, which is most of these guys, the philosophy guys, that you need history with object A in order to know anything. And that's kind of what he was like saying.
Now that doesn't scale up though, because the issue is like when you
maybe I could be butchering it, so whatever.
No, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Because it's very much like Hume.
And in order to find anything, you need to have a certain type of history with object A or whatever, which is pretty much his whole point. David Hume's whole point, and like that's why he's like a skepticism, or what is it called, empiricist or some shit like that, empiricism.
Well, he's
I don't know. There's so many names for these shits.
He's definitely a skeptic when it comes to empiricism.
Oh, all right. I don't know them shits. There's so many names of which I don't even know which is what.
But I still see, for example, like, all right, that's in what do you call it? That's an experiment. If you take that experiment, right, like the coin flip experiment, and you say it lands on its head or on its tail,
right,
and then you go from there and you apply it to other things and try to make a theory of shit, right? Like science has theories, like in physics, right? It's not just that the gravity has to work a certain way, it's that everything else in the universe has to work a certain way in order for there to be a theory. Because if one part of it is fucked up, the rest of the theory could fucking not make sense. And then you would need to have other evidence that makes the theory fit, right? And so you could say that with like an isolated experiment about one variable, but when you scale up to all the variables in the universe that you're observing and you're making them fit together, well then you'd have to know logically that one has to fit along with the other in order for the universe to be working the way it does, right? So it's a combination of variables as opposed to just one variable, the way that Hume is measuring. Well, not necessarily, but the way that he gives his examples,
right? Because
he's giving examples and things that are almost, like experiments. Like if whatever variable it is that you're measuring, right? It's not necessarily due to cause and effect, right?
Right.
And so, but ultimately, he could end up saying that all of these interactions are also not due to any cause and effect. And so then that would throw logic out of the window, and then whatever logic he uses to make his own case would be pointless, because
he was pretty much on some David Hume shit. Like this dude was like technically saying like we just have to throw it all in the doubt trash. Like it's everything we have to doubt or like be skeptical about.
But see, that creates a bit of a conundrum, right? Because if you say that I used reason to show that reason doesn't work, that then you enter a paradox.
Yeah, this is
right, because then you use something that doesn't work to try to show that something doesn't work. Right. So if I go and I You know, if I get if I get a pair of goggles,
Okay.
right, and I look at the ground with them, and I try to observe germs.
Okay.
I get some goggles and I try to look at germs, right? Well, it's not a microscope. So if I don't see germs, then I could conclude that I've used something that doesn't work to measure germs. To not measure germs, right? There's no germs. I use something that doesn't work.
I see what you mean.
So I've used goggles to show that goggles don't work.
Okay. Fucking Berkeley also said something about like, I don't know. Damn, I'm trying to remember now. Something about like subatomic particles. And like, you're not actually seeing subatomic particles. You're seeing images of subatomic particles.
Sure.
And, fuck, what else was it? I forgot the rest, but I forgot what it had to do with this, but whatever. My other point is to bring up the science shit.
Yeah.
Experiments, like, this guy was also saying, like, how it's just experiments and, like, until it's further proven to be, like, different or, like, until there's another, like, until something happens differently. He said there was a bunch of theories that have been debunked
Sure.
plenty of times. But as you said, like, you said that science doesn't say it's a scientific fact. So it's like, then with that...
Science just says we did these experiments and all of the evidence...
You don't think they've said that ever before, though? Like,
that's not science. Like, science is not to say this is true or this is false. Science is to do empirical research.
Sure.
And then use that research in order to create a theory. And a theory is just a way of getting all the evidence that you have about something and making it fit together.
Have you heard about the is or ought problem or whatever? Is ought?
Yeah, how something is and how something should be.
Yeah, or like how like one person could feel like let's say he feels some water and it's like cold to somebody, but the other person it feels hot or whatever.
Yeah.
Like some shit. Do you understand that shit? I was like kind of listening to it.
Yeah, if one person...
That's also David Hume, by the way.
If you get one person and he says it's hot and the other person says it's cold, then what you would do is get a thermometer. Because somebody might have a neurological disorder.
Oh yeah. The person could have had a cold hand, or like that person could have whatever XYZ. Do you agree with any of the? I don't understand it completely. I
agree that we should get a thermometer.
We should get a thermometer.
You know, and if you get 28 thermometers and they have a similar reading.
Sure. What about, okay, fuck that. What about the idea that some philosophers didn't even agree with the math beliefs?
With the what?
With just, like, believes in math. Like, they didn't agree with,
they
like...
didn't think that math was a good way of understanding anything?
In the sense where, like, let me give you the easiest example. 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
Technically, math is just, like, summing up information. Like in 1 + 1 = 2, no information was given. Like, you're just telling me that 1, like, that's 2 is another way of saying 1 + 1. You know what I mean? Like that's technically what math is. There was like a dude that was in math. I think his name was Brian Russell, and he was like, "Yeah, man, the only thing that we know that's like for sure objective is math." And then he did it for years and years and years, and then he's like, "Damn, guys, I don't know about math anymore." Like he said it like, "I feel like math is just a way of trying to say a 4-legged animal is an animal." Or like, for instance, like if I tell you, "Yo, dude, me and my wife just got married," like I already told you that we got married by saying that's my wife. Like that's kind of the way that like math just. Like, there's no information, there's no basis. It's just a way to sever.
Now, here's one of the things, because, like, philosophy of science deals a lot with how you interpret empirical findings, right? So, like, you measure the temperature, and it's 76 degrees, and you use 1 million thermometers, and they're all from different companies and 1 million different types, and you get a very close result on all of those 1 million thermometers, and they all lead to the same conclusion. It's still, there's no way to verify,
I mean,
whether or not what Hume said was true.
Okay.
In other words, he's getting one idea, cause and effect. He's negating it, but there's no experiment that can be offered. There's nothing empirical that can be offered to demonstrate his version of reality.
What?
And now,
go ahead.
and for those types of logics, you would have to be able to say that this is the way things work,
Okay.
right? Now, Hume had his own logic. If you can find the problems in it, you can fucking probably destroy him on his own things. I've never really looked up any criticisms of Hume's because I like the guy. You know, he shits on everything.
Sure.
And I like people that shit on everything as long as they do a good job of shitting on things. Like the cause and effect thing, it's like if you're a pure skeptic, it's like, how the fuck could I convince you?
Yeah,
You know?
it's
And it's like, what level of evidence do you require to say that something makes sense? You know? And I think that Hume was probably a guy who got up and probably brushed his teeth if they were into that during his age. And
pretty sure.
And if they were eating, he probably looked for food, and he probably thought that, you know, there was going to be, if he left a plate of food somewhere, unless somebody takes it away, he probably thought it was still going to be in his house when he came back to get it. So I think he sort of didn't share. He did that in a philosophical sense, but I don't think he shared that in his life. I don't think he acted out
I see what you're trying
what he
to say.
claims to believe, and I
see
don't
what you're
think
trying to
any
say.
of these skeptics do.
I mean, it's in a way, I feel like it'll be kind of impossible.
I think you've been conditioned beyond repair by the natural environment to act that way.
But
Because
it definitely, it's interesting out of the box thinking though.
Very.
I would give him the respect though, at least. But
very
like,
much, yeah.
because it's super different, and like I don't feel like many philosophers even probably don't even fuck with that idea, or like, so it's definitely a cool idea. Dude, I forgot what I was gonna say, but fuck, what was I gonna bring up? It was something about forgot what we were talking about. We were talking about something. It was something specific about Hume. I just don't remember now.
Nah, I used to think a lot like Hume in many ways. Not actually, because not like I said, not even Hume did it.
Right.
But I used to think that way a lot in terms of like, yeah, that level of absolute certainty, we can't have it. And it's like, yeah,
You don't think that's his overall point though?
I don't feel comfortable saying that it is or isn't. I don't feel like I've read. I don't feel like I've studied Hume enough to be able to say that.
Yeah, me either. So I'm just.
But I would in terms of cause and effect, that's what I know most about him.
Right.
It was a great criticism, but on the other end, it's like, well, the idea that one thing leads to another, and that events are connected because the alternative, because you can present an alternative and still be like, I'm not sure that's how it works.
Right.
But this is a problem you guys should solve, right? Like, what about this? What about that? What about the other? Right? You could present a million what ifs
Sure.
about any single thing that people might consider a fact. On the other end, it's like there's different levels of certainty. There's absolute certainty, which I've never found in anything. I mean, you can even question the idea of the self, right? And you can question, some people say, you know, one of the main earliest questions in philosophy is like, why does something exist instead of nothing? You know, goofy Greek philosophy shit like that.
Right. Dude, now that I remember, before I forget my thought, did you ever hear the Aristotle's the whole his little knife? I think it's called the essence, or some shit.
The essence.
It's like, for instance, I forgot what the point is. I think it's about like mental constructs or some shit. The idea where like, let's say I draw a knife right now, or I give you a wooden knife,
Yeah.
a plastic knife, one that's made out of steel, and there's one that's like drawn on paper.
Yeah. What makes it a knife?
Technically, all those things share something that's similar.
Yeah.
The idea that you can just...
I think he's probably trying to shit on Plato with wherever he's going. Because this is like the theory. Say that a knife was a form, right? Just like beauty is a form or whatever.
Okay.
You're shitting on the form of the knife. It's like, what makes it a knife?
Like the idea that you know what all those things are, that they're all similar in a way, is because of the essence of it. They all have... It's a knife, or I forgot why he was why Aristotle was bringing that up, but I thought that was interesting.
I mean, he was a student of Plato.
Did they agree with a lot of shit?
They agreed with some shit and they disagreed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were two different camps. You know, Aristotle led closer to
Real life shit.
Yeah, to something that would make more sense. Plato was much more closer to utopian shit.
Forms and shit.
Perfection. And the state becoming perfect with the philosopher king.
Damn.
You know,
Yeah, dude, philosophy is a fucking
it's a trip.
mental exercise.
Extreme mental exercise. Yeah, 100%.
Like, it's hard to, like, grasp all these
100%.
things, and, like, it's super cool, though. Fucking, idealism is pretty interesting. But it's,
Yeah, idealism is very interesting.
Berkeley had a cool idea about, like, I forgot what he called it, dude. I'm baked right now, so...
Well, Berkeley had a whole lot of ideas.
Yeah, it's one of them that had to do with, like, maybe it was about our senses or some shit, or that like, everything is just a mental construct in a way. Maybe.
Well, it really is. I mean,
Technically.
even based on the empirical shit, like, here's the one conundrum is, like, the idea of, like, all right, in science, right? Well, our science is based on observations of the natural world, and the only thing that can actually observe, even if it's through an instrument, the natural world is the people, and the people have their senses. And the senses...
But our senses lie to us.
Our senses are like, they're like a... What do you call it? They're like a... They're a middleman between... At least the way we think of them. They're a middleman between us and what's outside of us. Right? It's like there's us. You could consider it your consciousness.
Okay.
There's your senses that are the middleman, and they get all this information from the outside world,
and then you
and then they tell you, hey, this is what's really going on.
Gotcha.
And then you got to basically trust the middleman, right?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
And so if the middleman is wrong, your observations are only as good as the middleman.
Okay.
But it so, all right, if you have the middle, like, one way to put it, let's say that you're a gambler, right?
Okay.
And you go to the Kentucky Derby, and you got this one guy who's the hookup. He's gonna tell you, yo, we got this one racehorse who's the top guy, and we actually put, certain amount of whatever chemical in the racehorse to make it so that he's gonna get third place. That's your senses, right? If the middleman is telling you the truth, then your horse, when you bet that horse is gonna get, last place or whatever, you're gonna be good. If you bet that he's not, I mean, if your bet is off, if your middleman is lying to you, if your senses are lying to you, well, then you're going to be wrong about what's in the outside world.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And people say, well, everything is so consistent. Reality is consistent. The laws that we measure are consistent. So how can the middleman be lying? Well, it's like, you can have a consistent lie.
Well put.
So a really good liar is still a liar.
Maybe we're just living in lies.
And so you could never really get past that. You could always have a level of doubt beyond that.
I mean, can anything even exist outside of our consciousness?
Man, for all we know, the universe is consciousness,
I mean, I don't even think we could, though, right?
Why not?
Most philosophers would say we can't.
We can't know what, like, ultimate truth?
Like, we can't exist outside. Like, I mean, can we, like, perceive anything outside of our consciousness?
Oh, well, I mean, empirically, you can't.
Right.
Right? Because it's like, how could you, right? Everything about you is just filter. It's process. Like, once you get information into, like, the eye, like, past that eye, it's converting rods and cones and processing different sorts of information, and it converts them into, like, one type of cell to another type of cell. By the time they reach the brain, all you get is this explosion of a hallucination that tells you something about the world. And even scientifically, you know that it's bullshit to a certain degree, because you can measure using instruments certain parts of, like, the light spectrum that, we can't even perceive.
I got you. Fucking, I was gonna say, though, the dude that I was talking about earlier, the dude that made the binary code, I think it was Lebanese or whatever his name is, he pretty much, that I remember, he pretty much overall was saying that, like you right now grabbing that mic, like, the universe had already planned that millions of years ago.
Right.
It's kind of like I forgot how he compares it to, like, I don't know if you heard of the train theory, or like two trains that are, like, coincide together. One goes up, one goes down, one goes up, one goes down. Like, they're, like, it looks like they're together, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a way how he described how, like, the universe is just...
I'd say his shit is more like a movie. If you get a movie and you play it back from the beginning, Titanic is always going to be the same fucking movie. No matter how many times you play it back.
If you reset the universe right now, and reset it exactly the same. You would be doing the exact same thing. We would be potting right now. You would have went to university. You would have went to XYZ. And
if I pause Titanic 30 minutes in, and I never seen it before. I have no idea this ship is about to get sunk.
Right.
And so there's a lot of possibilities. What could happen here?
Sure.
But the movie's already made, and the Titanic is going to sink at the end of the movie.
Right.
Right. And so that would be an analogy to determinism.
True.
But I mean,
funny thing he did say, it's like the guy that was on the podcast. He was like, "Yo." Because Sam Harris believes in determinism. He's like, free will is an illusion, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, then ask Sam Harris who wrote the book. It wasn't really him. Like, it was determinism who wrote the book or whatever. But.
Oh, yeah, he had no choice, right? Christopher Hitchens was on that. They asked him, do you believe in free will? He's like, of course I do. I don't have a choice. You know, it's...
Right. That is funny, though.
So that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a funny little joke.
On the one hand, you know, because Sam Harris's conception of the lack of free will is also based on like the self being an illusion.
Yeah.
And so this idea of the self as just as this thing that's experiencing everything, you know, in the back of your eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And that's you. Like, that's a fucking hallucination. Right.
Didn't you show me like a video of like how like I think the eyes work or some shit? I forgot. I don't remember if it was
the way the eyes work is that's probably the most interesting, like neurologically, the most interesting sense that we have is the way that we organize information so that it reaches the back of the brain. Mm-hmm. It's fucking hilarious the way this shit works. Like, this is how you know that it wasn't a god, because he went out of his way to make this shit more complex than it had to be. Like, bro, your eyes, they get information, rods and cones, they transvert it to different types of cells. They go and they actually cross, right? Your two eyes, your eyes are a part of your brain that are actually sticking out, which makes me laugh every time it says, oh, she has such beautiful eyes. It's like you're complimenting her brain for its beauty. Much. But they cross towards like where what do you call it? Where the center of your brain is at, more or less. And then they reach like the opposite occipital lobes, right?
Jesus.
So like right here, the backside of your brain, which is where they process that. So if you have damage to any part that connects,
could fuck up your.
Yeah, there's people that like their eyes work perfectly fine, but like they don't see shit.
What the fuck?
You know, because it's like
because it's running off that shit pretty much.
Yeah, because it's not the eyes that are seeing. It's the way the brain is the one that processes that shit into something visual. The brain just gets the information and converts it into something that looks like something to us.
Then this dude was going off on some like complete like. Then we were really going down the rabbit hole about like how the brain is I don't know if I remember this concept. It's fucking difficult. Let me see if I can like how people think your brain is in consciousness or your consciousness is your brain, or I forgot. I gotta look it up.
Yeah, the
again.
brain produces consciousness is the idea, right? Like that.
Or like, but like the guy was like, no, it's actually you are the consciousness. Like you itself, or like
it's the consciousness produces what looks like matter.
I forgot. I gotta see.
The general idea, like in at least in neuroscience, would be like, look, mind and brain, right? Your mind being like
Doesn't Descartes talk about that? How the two could coexist?
He's a dualist,
right? People don't like that dualist shit. Apparently. I seen a video where some dude was like making jokes about it.
No, because like the idea in neuroscience, for example, would be more like monism. But I don't want to get into this shit. So okay. All right. The idea would be your mind and your brain are two parts of the same coin, but it's the brain that produces.
Right, because it's your brain.
It's the brain, the physical thing that produces the experience of consciousness. And they say that, like, look, if you have Alzheimer's and we start getting all of those tau proteins in your brain, you start getting that, you're going to start forgetting shit. That's going to happen, right? So if it's cause and effect, and we're not David Hume, when you have Alzheimer's, it's going to be that physical shit that's going on in the brain that's causing that to happen. And if we damage a certain part of your brain and you can't see, and that's certain because of the damage that's in that specific part of the brain, well, then that is showing you, that it's your physical matter that's somehow leading to this experience that you call being alive or being conscious.
So it's not your consciousness.
Your consciousness is tied to it. Because if I damage this part of the brain, then this function gets lost.
It'll
or this,
fuck up, yeah, right.
And all of that shit you can see, right? And so it'd be like, and this is something, Sam Harris really shit on the Christians with this. He's like, these people have convinced you that if you get the brain, right? Like if I take out, half your brain, you're going to have such and such damage on this side of the body and your senses are going to be all fucked up. And, if I fuck up if I remove your chunk of your hippocampus, you're also going to have similar issues. And, if I take out your occipital lobes, you won't be able to see. And all of this shit. And then he says, and they understand that, if I chunk out this part of the brain, you'll lose this function. If I chunk out the other, you'll lose that function. But somehow they think that if you kill the entire thing, all of your functions come back up in the sky in heaven, and they're all just back. And you're there with granddad and mom, and you remember them all perfectly without Alzheimer's again.
Right. That is
and he's a neuroscientist, so it's easy for him to come up with a neuroscience analogy, which is unfair. Unfair to the...
That is funny, though.
Christian with a middle school education. It's not, right?
Hold on, man. What's the thing that I wanted to show you?
I really did feel unprepared for this one, man. You really came out strapped.
I told you, bro. I've been listening to a lot of different perspectives.
I gotta re-up on my knowledge, bro.
Nah, I gotta do more, too, dude.
Holy shit.
It's hard for me to retain information while I'm out here smoking my life away. And
No, but you're getting into it anyways, man.
Nah, it's dope, though. It's dope. I just wanted to, how much we're already in an hour in? Oh, we're about a low battery?
Oh, yeah, we're on low battery, my friend.
Let me end it with this last take. If not, I'll just cut this last part off.
Yeah, go for it.
By the way, guys, the episode that got me all this thinking is Joe Rogan and Firas Zahabi. Debate scientific truth. Look it up.
And if it varies even slightly, it's going to change the way. So a person just doing it with their body is not capable of that kind of precision. If we got a robot to break, even if you...
Oh, they're talking about the...
Oh, that's an MMA trainer.
Yeah.
I know who he is.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty smart dude. He knows a lot about philosophy.
Object X. I don't know what object is. Why can't you deduce it? Why can't you deduce what's going to happen? Well, if I had...
See, he's way better at explaining this shit.
At the end of a long journey of Cartesian doubt, it was so extreme.
This is the Descarte shit.
Aristotle thought the sun goes around the earth. His eyes lie to him. Our senses lie. He talks about if I put my hand
it's on his David Hume shit, bro.
and I put it in tepid water, it'll seem warm to me. But that's just my bias, my inability to tell you what my instruments are not accurate enough. So I said, okay, let's put empiricism or senses by the wayside. It cannot give us truth. He says, what about deduction? What about math? Analytical knowledge. 1 + 1 = 2.
Oh, this is this shit.
Philosophy.
Alright, fuck this shit.
Pick that up. Maybe I had to point it out to you.
I think he says it now.
The thing we're most sure of. By the end of his career, he was like, guys, I'm not even sure about math.
This dude, yeah.
Aristotle. Two of the greatest thinkers in ancient history. Here is. You cannot experience anything outside of your consciousness.
Oh, right here.
So you could be plugged into a machine right now.
Hold up.
Me to have thoughts, I'd have to exist. If you doubt the cogito, you've proved the cogito. Because to object really famously. He did it in one sentence too. Everything with a doubt, you chop it. Everything that might be imaginary, inferred, logical, empirical.
Oh yeah, he's always talking about inferences, like how we're just making inferences. These things are not just all the scientific shit that we do is just inferences of our mind. It's just
Well, if he stopped that, I think therefore I am. Did he accept that one?
I think he did.
Okay, then he fucked up.
All your paradigms. And this takes a very brave human being to do. To remove everything that anybody's ever told you and have the experience of the one thing. What you would know, what you would come to with mystics. That's why I believe that there's
Oh, now you done fucked up. The mystics.
Religion is true.
Oh!
Wait, hold up, babe, chill.
It's crazy, but there is a point, and I believe in science. Don't get me wrong. I can't praise science enough. But
Yeah, I think he skipped
a transcendent experience a human has, and that transcendent experience is consciousness itself, not the content of consciousness. This is where people make a mistake. Consciousness itself, reality, your world is nested in consciousness.
Here we go. He's gonna explain it.
Consciousness is within my brain. It's the opposite. Your brain, your body, yourself is in consciousness. And when we get to this point, then all our paradoxes disappear. There's no more paradoxes, logical paradoxes.
Listen, man,
But maybe if we have time, we can talk about logical paradoxes. They
that
never end.
oh man,
But when we understand that our world is nested in consciousness, there's nothing happening in the world around you that's outside of your consciousness. It's only outside of your ego, the thing you associate with Joe Rogan.
Do you know about the ego trick? What's it called? Predicament? The
ego death.
not ego death. Ego. I searched it up. I was looking up that shit. Dude, there's so much shit in philosophy. It's called the egocentric predicament. Have you ever looked that up? You know about that?
What is the egocentric predicament?
I can't
Is also
thoroughly explain it right now.
We can get into it. We can.
Consciousness. No brain has ever been observed outside of consciousness. See, in materialism,
What?
they have this consciousness. Your brain is within consciousness. No brain has ever been observed
Outside of consciousness. Now that's we wouldn't agree with that?
No, because we haven't measured consciousness, so you can't even say that we've measured a brain within consciousness.
But isn't everything we perceive from consciousness?
We
So
can't.
technically-
There's no way that I can demonstrate that you're conscious, and you can't demonstrate that I'm conscious. You can just observe my behavior.
But me having a thought, me being able to just...
You having a thought. I mean, listen. For all you know, somebody just...
For all I know, you don't know if I'm having thoughts.
You could
Sure.
Somebody could have just implanted every past memory of your life an hour ago, and you wouldn't know it. Okay.
Okay.
And this is why this idea of you doubt everything and then you lead to some sort of enlightenment, spiritual guru
Let's
shit.
finish this thought and we'll end it.
consciousness. See, in materialism, they have this philosophy called epiphenomenalism. That the consciousness is a byproduct of this physical brain.
This is where I get
You
mind
have this
fucked.
physical brain,
Help me out here.
and your consciousness is like a byproduct. It's like a smoke. Now we ask them, how do you know about this physical brain? Oh, we know it because of our consciousness. So if your consciousness is fake, unreal, then so is your brain. Your brain's the reason why we all know about brains is because of consciousness. Consciousness tells us about brains. So brains are dependent on consciousness, not consciousness dependent on the brain.
Like you were saying, right?
Yeah,
You were saying the exact opposite.
This is the thing. I mean, if you're gonna argue about science,
Which he wasn't, but he was just saying...
now you would have to be able to say, well, it's not because of consciousness. Nobody fucking gives a accurate definition of science or
Sure.
of consciousness or measures it. And so this idea that you would have to demonstrate that. And so this is a big...
what ifs, or we don't really know. We can't really...
It's like there's this experiment and there's this result, right? For all you know, the scientists that he's talking about are all just drones. They don't have consciousness. They act like it through their behavior.
Through the behavior.
So it's
hard to be...
it's like if you want to go into mystical waters, you could do it, man.
Sure.
But you won't get far, because there's no...
But you agree. We have thoughts, though.
Of course I believe you have thoughts.
Every human would say that,
Yeah,
right?
I act as if you do. You're similar to me. You have a fucking body.
Right.
I have a body.
Obviously, technically, we don't know for fucking... We can't
don't
look
have
into...
that
We
level
can't.
of
We can't
certainty.
measure consciousness. I get it.
We don't have that level of certainty about everything.
So wouldn't that debate this whole convo about my man David Hume?
If that's the level of certainty he requires, then so be it. But I don't think he believes himself.
I feel you. That was a good way to... This guy's not living his raps. In other
ain't
words.
about that
He
life.
ain't living his raps, right? Yeah.
He's talking that talk, but he ain't walking that walk, bro.
I got you. Well, fuck it, dude. I guess we'll end it here.
We'll
bro.
end it there, man. That was brutal, bro.
Sheesh.
All right, folks.
All right, guys. Peace.
It's been an honor. Have a good one.